A few months ago, when we were talking about the impact of economic conditions on this year's audits, John, you mentioned SAS 99. Now, even though that particular standard doesn't apply to compilation or review engagements, I've got to ask you, to what extent does fraud enter into doing compilations and reviews under SARS number 19?
Neither compilation or review engagements are designed to identify fraudulent activity or the performance of illegal acts. There's no procedures associated with compilation or reviews that would require any type of fraud risk assessment procedures being performed. Having said that, if in the performance of a compilation or a review, potential fraud or possible illegal acts come to the attention of the accountant, then due to that information coming to the attention of the accountant has a responsibility to notify management of whatever the facts and circumstances are, and then to evaluate management's response to the information that was provided to it by the outside accountant. If that response is acceptable, is appropriate, then that's fine, and the compilation and review engagement can continue as is. If it turns out that the management response is not acceptable, that they don't take whatever the circumstances are seriously, if they don't do any kind of meaningful investigation into those facts and circumstances, then it's likely that the outside accountant would consider resigning from the engagement.
Well, fraud isn't the only topic that you've discussed on this program in recent months. A few months ago, we were discussing the professional rules for independence by auditors. So tell me, to what extent is independence also required in connection with compilation and review engagements?
Becky, independence is required in the performance of attest services. Attest services include audits, reviews, and compilations. But in terms of compilations, you have an alternative in that you could perform the compilation even if you're not independent, as long as you state in the report language that says, we are not independent.
Okay, you don't have to be independent to perform a compilation service, but you must disclose in the compilation report that you aren't independent. Wasn't there also a proposal to allow accountants to explain why they are not independent?
Prior to SARS 19, you were prohibited from giving a reason for not being independent. Since or in SARS 19, it now gives you the option of stating in your report the specific reason why you were not independent. It might be a financial interest, it might be that you performed internal control services, for whatever number of reasons you may not be independent. You are now allowed to put in your report the reason for that. Interestingly, the driving force for that in many cases was third parties. Third parties were interested in the reason you were not independent, and that enabled them to better evaluate the objectivity and credibility of the information of the accounting firm who did the work, knowing what the reason might be for the accounting firm not being independent. So with SARS 19, that's now permitted.